So the first one, let's talk about the lats. These are the big, wide muscles of the back. They're the biggest muscles of the back. And I remember learning that they were the biggest muscles of the body. Then I've heard people say it's the glutes. Nonetheless, it's up there. It's one of the largest muscles of the body. And it's the wings part.
Yeah.
It's the wings part of the back. It's actually the widest muscles of the body. Now, what they're largely responsible for, because the lats, if you look at the lats from the back, you'll see that they kind of attach along the spine. Then they kind of come up and they fan out, and then they kind of pinch in and attach in the humerus, right? In this kind of upper arm area. And what they essentially do is adduct the humerus or bring the arms in towards your body, or from up top down towards your body. So a pull up, a pull down, a row, those exercises are going to work those big, meaty parts of the back known as the lats. And then aesthetically speaking, developing your lats gives you this really nice posture look. By the way, the lats are also involved in posture. A lot of people don't realize this, but the lats are involved in some way to stabilize the spine. And believe it or not, the lats also help a little bit with respiration, as do most of the muscles of the back.
Favorite exercises, lat pull downs, pull ups?
I would have to say for a pure lat exercise, it's got to be pull ups.
Yeah, weighted pull ups.
Yeah,
if you can.
It's got to be pull ups. And there, people ask like, what's better? Like wide grip, close grip. I would say for most people, a relatively like a moderate grip, so not too narrow, not too wide, is probably appropriate for most people. But then as you become more advanced, you can find that different grips tend to work the muscles a little bit different.
Oh yeah, I would make the case that there's tremendous value in varying up the grips. Like,
for sure.
I try when if pull-ups, which they have been in my routine actually pretty consistently for a while now. And I think a lot of that has to do with having a home gym, right? I don't have a lat pull down machine. I don't have a lot of different exercises. I have just the basic stuff. And since pull up is one of the best things I can do for my lats, it's a staple right now. But I love that the PRX has all the different
grips.
Yeah, so I'll go through a kick where I'm like, all the pull-ups are neutral, all of them are kind of a wide grip, some are going to be a supinated grip, and they all attack the back in a slightly different way, and just the slight novelty of positioning the wrist and elbows in a different position hits the back different. So if I catch myself pulling up the same way and it's been a while, it's like that. It's just naturally I'll change it.
It's a nice change up of stimulus. And one thing I've found too that not a lot of people probably do. I've seen it done a few times. I'm always a big proponent of rotation, and so trying to mimic that kind of spiraling line in a press, but now using that as a single arm lat pull down too. I love doing those as well, just to sort of counter that same movement and bring kind of control and stability there to help the shoulder kind of really stay healthy and packed in place.
I like that. And you're going to get some interesting bicep activation with that while you're turning the hand. And it hits kind of all those different motions. I just change the grips up a lot is what I like to do. I would say a wide grip requires definitely more strength and more shoulder stability, because the risk of injury goes up higher, whereas a more narrow grip tends to be a little bit safer.
Like neutral. I think neutral will probably feel the most comfortable for the athlete.
Where your hands are facing each other.
Yes.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
Probably the most comfortable for someone to
totally. And rows also hit the lats quite a bit. It's just not as direct of a lat exercise. And rows hit more of the mid-back.
Yeah, I'd put rhomboids and traps in that.
Right. And so let's get to that, right? So let's talk
before you get to that, I want to say something that Justin just like lightly said, and I think this was I want to try why we go through this whole masterclass to share things that were I don't know, either pivotal moments in our training, like in talking about the lats. He said weighted pull-ups. For a long time, I understood the value of pull-ups, and I just did body weight. And as I got stronger, I just did more reps. It wasn't really until we started training together, and I didn't start training the single, the double, the triple, even like anything under five by five, just never hit my routine. And so it never dawned on me why I would do 3 pull-ups. And so I just never did that. And that didn't happen until later. And I saw huge benefits from loading pull-ups really heavy and just doing 2 or 3
Treating it like a true strength exercise.
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of muscle endurance.
It was always muscle endurance. It was like, oh, I haven't done pull-ups in a while. Let's get back to pull-ups. And of course, if you haven't done them in a while, sometimes like 5 to 10 is hard. And then I'd work my way all the way up to where I'm repping out 20 plus. And then it was like, oh, then I let it fall out of my routine and then I come back. It wasn't until way later in my lifting career that I actually, when I progress in pull-ups, to think, oh, now I'm getting up to 12, 15 reps. Instead of me just keep progressing on reps, how about I load this sucker and do 5 of these or 3 of these? And I saw huge development in my back by doing that. So I just want to point that out.
So I did weighted pull-ups pretty early because I read an article by Jack LaLanne, and Jack LaLanne at one point, I think it was 50, he set the world record for push-ups and pull-ups. And they said, well, what are some of your secrets to being able to do so? I think he did 1,000, if I'm not mistaken, 1,000 push-ups.
He did. He actually had the record before David Goggins and then Mike Castle.
Mike McCastle, yeah.
And it held forever. Again, he was 50 years old, pretty remarkable. And he said, oh, heavy bench presses and weighted pull-ups. And everybody was like, what? And so he saw that heavy bench presses got him better at push-ups, and weighted pull-ups got him better at doing lots of reps of pull-ups. And so I started doing this. I would put a dumbbell between my legs and do 2 or 3 reps. And it's one of the best exercises to do weighted. A lot of people don't know that. And some exercises lend themselves better to low reps and heavy
I
weight.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, as a trainer and knowing the value of pull-ups, I neglected that. And by the way, even if you were going to train, I would use that tactic even when I was going to do high rep, because for the post-activation potentiation, the value from it, right?
So I heavy.
I'd go one or 2 reps real quick, heavy weighted, and then I go high reps, and you'll see how easy the reps are after you do one set of really heavy. It's mind-boggling. So such a hack, right, for getting good at pull-ups and building a strong back and good lats.
Totally. Yep. All right, now let's talk about the traps, the trapezius muscles. Now, these muscles actually have quite a few different functions. A lot of people think of just doing shrugs. That's the upper traps. The mid traps actually bring the shoulder blades back together. So doing like a row where you're pinching your shoulder blades back will hit that kind of mid trap area where you kind of where the, if you look at the neck, like below the neck, kind of give you that muscularity there. And then the upper traps shrug the shoulders up. But they shrug the shoulders up kind of in this up and back position, not this forward position. When you move them forward, you hit other kind of muscles a little bit more, levator scapulae being one of them. Now, the traps are very important for shoulder stability. Having weak, tight traps is quite common, especially with people who work on computers all day long in this kind of forward position, because the CNS tells the traps to stabilize the shoulders because we've got really poor mobility and strength. So people are always complaining about tight neck muscles. Working the traps out properly, along with the other back muscles, will help alleviate a lot of these issues.
Which is counterintuitive,
yes.
Right? Because a lot of times when you're tight and in pain in that position, you think you just need to stretch it out and relax, and to be able to strengthen a lot of these imbalances and added points of stress really helps to kind of alleviate pain in general.
Totally.
So a point that you made that, again, another one of these things that took me a while to piece this together. I remember getting on a kick and wanting to build my traps. And what I ended up doing was all these variations of shrugs, neutral grip, behind the back shrugs, like forward, super. I did all these like shrug stuff. To do it. I even did the reverse shrugs where you actually had the barbell above you and shrug. Like I did all kinds of crazy stuff with that. Never really focused on like my upper back where I target it with like rows with my elbows elevated so that. And you can really develop the traps by actually hitting them like that. And my traps got so much bigger and better from doing that. And I think that a lot of that had to do with I had already done all the shrugging stuff like crazy, and I had put zero emphasis on the back of the upper back and actually doing it like rows where you elevate your elbows. And I saw tremendous value in building the traps that way.
Do you have any favorite trap exercises for you guys?
Have you ever done the one where it's behind your back? With barbell? Yeah, that was a
Lee Haney. I love
that one.
That was his favorite. Lee Haney was a 6 or 7 time Mr. Olympia. That was his favorite.
I mean, you got to have good shoulder mobility and all that to pull it off.
You got to go light.
Discretion, but yeah.
The reason why it works so well behind the back is because you have to keep your shoulders back in order to clear your glutes.
the posture of it.
Right, when you're doing it.
So the untraditional stuff are the things that blew my mind. Like I had done all the shrugging things. Like I said, the high rows where I was, rowing with my elbows up in the air and like elevated. So I was targeting really high, and snatches.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
My traps blew up.
Yeah.
Hang cleans though, right?
Yes,
Too.
they're the hang cleans. Excuse me.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
talking about snatch, grip, hang clean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's nasty.
Yeah.
And that just I
great.
did not see that coming at all. And in fact, I remember I pieced it together when I was doing the hang cleans, the presses for my shoulders. And my traps, just like my traps, shoulders, everything blew up from that exercise. And I loved it because in my space, when I was doing that with the bodybuilding community, nobody was doing that. It's such a power lifter, Olympic lifter type of move that none of the bodybuilders were training that way. And I saw huge development from doing that exercise.
Doing shrugs on an incline, on a really, really high, almost straight back incline. So the incline is just slight, leaning forward on it. So my face is facing the seat, and then shrugging. And the reason why I like that is because I'm just forward enough to where I can target.
I like that too, because what you're doing is you're almost incorporating a little bit of a row
exactly.
in with the shrug. And that back to the point I was making about a lot of people don't tend to target the traps like that by trying to, and you get kind of both right there with the shrug and pulling back.
Yeah,
so it's a great
and what I
movement.
really like about it is I get a full range of motion. I'll let my shoulders really drop so I could feel that full range of motion. This is the biggest mistake people make with shrugs, by the way, is using too much weight in a short range of motion, because you can load the hell out of shrugs and look cool in the gym. Look, I'm grabbing the 150s or whatever and kind of do this like chicken head movement or whatever.
Yeah.
Go lighter, focus on all the way up, squeeze real hard, all the way down, let them stretch a little bit. Do that with lighter weight, watch what happens. Makes a huge difference. All right, next up are the rhomboids. These muscles actually are underneath the traps. It's a deep back muscle, but they're involved in stabilizing the shoulder blades, and they bring the shoulder blades back. My favorite exercise for rhomboids are rows.
Bent over rows.
Just good
old barbell rows.
That's it. And it gives me that upper mid-back thickness. I do the Dorian 8 style when I'm not flat to the ground, but I'm up at 45 degrees. And then I get kind of mid-trap, kind of, mid-rhomboid activation.
Get fun and functional with it and do some fast twitch stuff with like pendulum rows, then I'll go bend over, but with rotation added in there for me. So I like to change it up like that. But really, rows are a staple. That is just something that's going to help to counter a lot of this anterior forward movement and stress.
I love pendulum rows. And so, you said something about the way you were shrugging and doing traps. So this is an example of like programming, how my brain works. If I'm going to do that exercise where you're leaning over the bench facing forward and shrugging, I'm not going to do standard barbell rows because I'm already hitting that area pretty well.
You're going to do a pull down.
Or I'm going to do completely bent all the way over and do pen lay, where I hit more on that targeted area. So if I do if I do something that's more traditional, where I'm doing like a normal shrug, then like a traditional bent over a barbell row, where I'm at like, I don't know what degrees that is, but you're not quite pen lay bent over. But I like pen lay.
What's the one where you're laying on the bench with a wide grip?
Seal row.
I like those a lot.
I've
You only
never done a
find
seal row.
those at a few gyms.
I've never done it.
Oh yeah?
No, I've never found a place.
I thought the Cottle one didn't have one of those.
No, where you're laying on the bench and then it's got the bar that does this.
Yeah.
I've never done it. Now, to be honest with you, it looks uncomfortable. Like you won't be able to
There's
breathe.
some pressure in the stomach.
But I've never done it before. You guys like it, huh?
Oh yeah, I love that. Now, and I'll do a variation of that with an incline bench and do dumbbells that way.
That's how I've always done it.
So it's similar to a seal
face
row.
down.
Yeah,
supported.
you're not quite parallel to the floor. You have kind of taking the incline bench up at just a tiny bit, and to where my hands are down, I won't hit the ground.
Yep.
And I roll that way.
This is especially good after you've fried, like by doing like heavy deadlifts, and you want to still hit your back, right?
Yes.
And you get that chest support, so that way it doesn't like add that extra stress on your back.
Great point, Justin. Like another example of like understanding programming. If I'm going to do heavy deadlifting and my erector spinae is going to be fried, just my look like I'm fried already from doing something that heavy, I'm going to support myself and things like that. That's
Doing
actually
more chest support.
Yeah, I might not do a barbell row. I might do a T-bar row or a seal row or do something seated because I already...
Or even a one-arm dumbbell row, right? At least your hand and your knee is on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, 100%. And, we're going to get to this, but the exercises for back can be broken down into kind of two categories. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're all the same.